there guys, Erica here from Highway 49 RC. Thank you to my patrons and channel members for supporting what I do. Really appreciate it guys, thank you. So, I've got the shafty on the bench here today. Obviously it's got a different chassis on it than you guys remember. This is the custom machine chassis that I made, and I decided that I just really didn't like the aesthetics of it. You couldn't tell which way was front and back, which was not the worst thing in the world, but I don't know. I didn't like it in terms of the aesthetics. So I went back to the old chassis on a stream. All of the electronics are currently ripped out of it, so this is going to have to all be rewired on a stream one of these days. But today what I want to do is upgrade the servos on it, because they are not strong enough. They're starting to brown out a bit, and I was having an issue with the rear one actually not keeping center, which was kind of strange. So I've actually been sitting on these servos for about 8 months now. I've got a pair of NSDRC RS700 V2s. These are the limited edition purple ones. Very, very fancy. Come with a nice purple servo horn as well. But basically, the front mount, I think I'm going to leave pretty much the way it is. The rear one is the one that I really want to revamp today. Maybe I'll do something with the front one, I'm not quite sure. So here's what I've got going on in the rear. I've got my servo mounted up right here to the axle posts, and it's really flimsy. I have actually bent this from landing hard and just having the link get jarred and push the servo and bend it, which is not good. And then I've got behind the axle steering, as you can see just there. So I think I want to maintain this orientation of the servo. I played with some ideas of different ways to mount it, and there's just not really much of a better way than this. What is nice about these servos is that they are slightly shorter than the Servos ones, so that means that they won't stick up quite as far, or at least the rear one won't, which is nice. So I think I'm going to put it on this side, but I want to take this servo off real quick and just see how much room I've got to play with. I also popped the upper link mount off just so we have a little extra space to play with here. So if I put it on this side, it comes pretty much all the way to the edge of the C-hub here, with it sitting, roughly flat on the axle, which I wanted as low as possible to lower my center of gravity. I was playing with the idea of having it upright like this, but that would raise my center of gravity, and I don't really like that idea. On this side, though, I've got an extra about 3/16 of an inch of space there, which is going to be conducive for my mount. The mount I want to build for this servo needs to be super duper ultra uber strong, like crazy strong, because these servos at 12.6 volts have over 900 ounce-inches of torque, which is absolutely ridiculous. They're direct power servos, so they run directly off the battery, making them extra strong. But what I'm thinking of doing is machining a block of aluminum that kind of saddles this part of the axle tube and comes straight up to the servo mount. And also, just because of the location of the screw, it's going to have to slightly encase the end of the servo. Then on this side, I want to tie into these axle posts and possibly tie into a custom upper link mount as well, but I'm not quite sure about that just yet. Here are a few drawings that I whipped up real quick. This is going to be the one large aluminum block servo mount. This is where it's going to straddle the axle. Those are going to be the two mount screws that go into the axle tube. And then this is the little cutout that it's going to need to have to fit the servo into it. And this over here is the upper link mount idea that I had. So I was going to do a piece of 1/8 inch thick aluminum angle here, and then sandwich my upper link rod end with another piece of probably 1/8 inch aluminum here that would tie into the axle post there, and then also be big enough or extend out this direction enough that it could also tie in the servo. So I think that is going to give me a really, really strong servo mount. here's the little mount that I made. I'm really happy with it. It turned out good. Didn't make any mistakes, which is a very rare occurrence when it comes to manual milling projects for me. I decided not to do the little undercut here because the way that my drawing wasn't really properly dimensioned, if that makes sense, so it looked better in the drawing than it does in real life. So I just decided to leave it, and it fits the axle fairly well. There's some adjustment that's going to need to be done, but I'll do that later. It fits the servo absolutely gorgeously. The servo screw holes line up, and it slots in just absolutely perfectly. It's such a nice fit. I'm really, really happy with it. Countersunk the axle screw holes there. My servo bracket here does need a little bit of adjusting. There's one spot that needs to be clearanced a little bit, maybe another, and I want to clean it up just a little bit more, but I will do that while I'm working on the upper link mount, which is what I'm going to move on to next. Alright, you guys can't tell me that this rear end doesn't look freaking sexy. I love the way everything is so nice and low profile. It took me a good amount of handwork to get this rear link mount all situated just how I liked it, but honestly, now it looks fantastic, and I think it's going to be super duper strong as well. My behind the axle steering link clears just gorgeously, and it articulates very nicely, just as it should. I also really like, of course, how the machined aluminum mount turned out for the servo. Like, it just all looks so compact, so, like, it just looks good, It's, like, so nice and low profile, compact. It's going to be super strong. In fact, I am so happy with the way the rear turned out that I'm actually thinking about doing something about the front now. I'm not quite sure what. I'm going to do some brainstorming. I brought a battery out here to play with placements again, but we'll see what I come up with. I do need to take the rear all back apart, just clean all the die-chem off of it, clean up some edges, get some burrs off, stuff like that. Boring nonsense, but if I decide to come up with something cool for the front, I will let you guys know. I did end up deciding to do a front servo mount, but I then got sick, which kind of screwed up the whole video. I built the whole mount while I was sick, so all I have is about like 20 minutes of time-lapse footage, and nobody wants to watch time-lapse footage. And I wasn't able to shoot any intermediary commentary because I lost my voice for a couple days. You can probably still hear it a little bit. But what I ended up doing actually is modeling the mount that I made in Fusion 360 step by step so that you guys can see exactly what I did without having actually seen it, if that makes any sense. So let's check it out. I started off the front servo mount with a piece of 1 inch by 1 inch aluminum angle, 1/8 inch thick. Next thing I did was cut out a gap for the servo and drill the mounting holes for it. After that, I then made a cutout for the differential.
I then made a slit along the length of the piece of aluminum, basically right over top of the outer wall here. And I think you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I used my Dremel and cut a slot here so that when I bend this part down, it basically turns out to be almost like a zero kerf without being an actual zero kerf. So then, as you can see, I bent it down and it left pretty much zero kerf, just left with this little gap up at the top, which, no big deal. I decided to actually then go and TIG weld the back face to the slopey bit, and I sanded that down all nice and flat. Then after that, I took and bent up the end here, because this is going to be my battery tray. So, I want something on the end to stop it from, sliding all the way off. And the angle that I did here was for tire clearance, actually. I'm going to need to get some smaller batteries because of just how much steering angle this thing now has. Then I also put a slot in the back here for my battery strap to go through. I drilled and countersunk a couple mounting screw holes. This one is for the C-hub, I believe. And this one is for the post that comes up out of the axle for the stock servo mount, which you guys will see later. Then finally, I made a couple more components. I made a little L-block bracket. So basically the servo tab gets sandwiched in between here and this block. The screws go through the angle and thread into the block here, making a nice tight sandwich. And then this bolts down to the axle tube. And as you can see, it's got a nice curve on the bottom of it, which is very, very nice. So then I moved on to making an upper link mount, which bolts on basically to the normal locations. However, because of some steering linkage clearance, I had to shorten this bit here so it's not actually coming, so the bolt's not coming through this hole. I drilled and tapped a separate one here just above because I was having some clearance issues, which you guys will see why, and just filed off the corner here so it's nice and smooth and flat with the battery tray. So there you have it. There is the 3D model of my front servo mount. And here it is in real life, guys. This thing looks absolutely awesome. It turned out really good. I'm really, really happy with it. There are some ovals that are supposed to be holes. That day when I drilled those, I should not have been allowed to use the drill. But everything fit together super nicely. Everything is nice and clean. I'm so happy. This is the best servo mount I have made for my shafty to date. Absolutely, hands down. But yeah, this just looks absolutely phenomenal. So then, of course, because I did this design, I needed a different design of tie rod. For my first attempt, I created a very lovely specimen of what I would like to call spaghetti metal. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. So I then decided to go and make my steering link, my behind the axle steering link, out of steel that is smaller diameter. That's kind of what was getting me with the first one, was just the diameter of the aluminum, which is 1/4 inch, was just too small, or too big. So I went to 3/16 round steel, and actually that worked really, really good. There was some flex in the center here, so what I did is I took and welded a piece across there just to kind of act as a gusset, and it is unbelievably strong now in that center area. My drag link is actually the link off of my Yeti that I made friggin' years and years and years ago, but I was able to repurpose it, which is awesome. And then back to the rear mount, which you guys already saw, but I ended up with this. I think it's a titanium link for a Wraith or something like that for my drag link, but I just wanted to show you guys what my link setup was. I'm going to get these two absolutely killer servo mounts bolted up to my shafty, and I will come back and show you the finished product. I'm so excited about these. These are just fantastic. servo mounts, along with the new NSDRC servos, are fully installed. This project took quite a bit longer than I was anticipating, but I think that they turned out absolutely awesome. They're fairly complicated mounts, but honestly, they are going to just be so unbelievably strong. The clearances are just so tight for the behind the axle steering, especially in the front. And on the rear, this super sick machined block that we made was just, it looks so good. It's just so solid and strong, and the upper link mount is just really minimalistic and clean. Obviously, I have not wired them up yet because this thing, as it sits, has no electronics in it. So I'm going to need to put all the electronics back into it. They are currently a rat's nest, so I'm gonna have to redo all the wiring because these are direct power servos like I mentioned earlier. So that's probably gonna get done on a stream at some point. Now, in regards to the battery tray in the front, I actually took the cover that I had made for my 2200 mAh batteries, the little like aluminum cover, and I adapted it to fit my MOA saddle packs. Yeah, check that out. And I angled it a little bit so that it sits on top of the servo mount real nice. Just slips in like so. Nice and covered up. The wire actually goes out the other side, but whatever. But I'm really happy with it, actually. It turned out good. A little bit janky, but hey, it'll protect the batteries, and now I have less batteries to deal with. I don't have to worry about getting another set for this thing. I'm going to need to get or find some smaller battery straps because these are a little bit too big at the moment, but that's not a big deal. Just I'll probably order some, honestly. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little build modification video. I had a lot of fun making the mounts. I think they turned out awesome. If you guys enjoyed, please do leave a big fat thumbs up. If this does happen to be the first video that you have seen by me, make sure you go down, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment while you're down there. And if you're looking for friends to hang out with in the RC hobby, check out my Discord server. You can come hang out with us, chat with us anytime you like. Links are in the description for that, along with my Instagram, Patreon, and my Discord. Yeah, right. Of course. Alright guys, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.